How's it going, Aaron?
Good morning, my friend.
So I am the one expressing as Matt. How about that?
Bingo.
So my question is kind of like a follow-up to the last one about manifestation a little bit, talking about Abraham Hicks. And so how do we know the difference between an ego, like attachment to a desired outcome that for the purpose of survival or to identify, versus source within intending to have an experience? So if I have a desire, if a desire comes to me to want to do something, how do I know the difference between that's just I'm coming from a place of needing to survive or to identify with something, or that really there's nothing going to stop this thing because it's the God within me that wants to make this happen?
Mm-hmm.
How do I know the difference?
So going back to non-doership, all actions are God's actions. All desire is God's desire. The understanding in module 1 is that ego is just the activity of identifying. So ego doesn't actually have any of its own desires or any of its own actions. It only claims them as its own. And when it claims one as its own, it's this desire on behalf of the universe that has come through this body is not the universe's desire. It's me, an individual, isolated self's desire. And I'm using this desire to fulfill and enhance myself as an individual, isolated entity. That's what it does to a desire. So it's just awareness of that. Well, like whatever urge there is, it's life's urge. Even to pick up my tea and drink it, it's life's desire to drink the tea. Life is experiencing medicine ball tea through the Aaron's body, right? So I'm not claiming it as my action. When I claim it as my action, it perpetuates or gives continuity to this idea that I am an isolated entity, lost and alone in this body who needs to preserve myself. And then my desires, the mind's desires, will begin to reflect that: pride, arrogance, guilt, and so forth. So you can't get out of that trap from within it. You can only recognize that it's an illusion. There's no ego that wants a desire to enhance itself. There's just whatever source is doing through this body. So it's like, go with it. And when you go with it, if it was a karmic remnant of an ego, a separate self-belief that was done out of desire for selfish gain or something, if you go into it with awareness, you'll see that instantly. You'll know right away, ew, gross, it smells like dirty diapers. You'll recognize it. But when you're identified, you don't recognize it. So it's only ever the act of being identified with a desire or an action or a thought or a feeling where we get into trouble. Let it all express, but be the witness. And in the witnessing state, you become that self-organizing, self-correcting principle that goes, that's not real. That's not me. That's an illusion. That's insecurity. That's guilt. That's pride. I don't want that. And some masterful intelligence just sorts it all out. But it takes practice to be the witness, because identification has a very thick gravity to it. We're used to going into the person role. And how do I enhance myself today? How do I better the person today? How do I find the person happiness today? That's the role, that's the inertia the mind has going. So it's really a constant remembrance, a constant reminder to be the observer.
When you say it takes practice to be the witness, what does that practically look like for you?
For me personally?
Sure, yeah. Maybe it could work for me.
Yeah. Well, all these words are really concessions, because it doesn't, in the beginning stages, it feels like practice because there feels like there's a person who's doing the remembering and reminding. Oh, there I go again. Let me be the witness now. And really that's the mind trying to do it. and trying to catch up to this new state of awareness you're trying to integrate, over time, you'll recognize that actually that awareness of being the observer is just dawning upon me. It's just happening. Like,
Okay.
I'm sure you've done a lot of visualization meditations, right? Where you're trying to manifest something like Abraham Hicks. And it's like, okay, see it,
Mhm.
feel the excitement, get in the emotion. The feeling is the secret.
Yep.
You're like, oh, yes, I'm doing it. And you feel the excitement.
Mhm.
So, like, go back to one of those memories really quick and ask yourself the question, let's say you were doing a guided meditation and someone's like, okay, visualize that moment where you're on that vacation with that perfect lover or whatever. And all of a sudden, some image appears in your mind and it's like 3D and you can see her face and you see the sunset and it's all there. And you're like, oh, wow. And then poof, the emotion hits and you're like, oh, I did it. I saw the moment. Now it's inevitable. It's going to happen. In that experience, did you actually create that through effort or did it actually just appear?
It just happened. It
Yeah,
just came.
it just happened, right? Like you didn't sit there with a
Yeah.
paintbrush and paint the image you
No.
saw and put the detail, the eyeball is blue and the eyebrow. You didn't do that, right? It just poof.
No.
You set the intention and source intelligence gave you an experience or maybe a glimpse into a future moment or whatever. So there was no doer of that. It just happened. So
Mhm.
it was a gift from grace. So in that same way, like see my urges that way, see my feelings that way, see my thoughts that way. None of it's being done by a doer, right? It's all just happening in accordance to karma and the laws that govern the universe. All of life is making it happen. And I'm really just witnessing. So when you want that to be your experience, when you're tired and exhausted of doing, something in you just wants to not be the doer. And as soon as that intention is there, just like the visualization, you had to create the intention. There had to be a desire to see that experience, and then it was given. As Abraham would say, ask and it is given, Matthew 7:7. It's the same thing with anything. I want self-realization. I want to know who I am beyond the ego. Create a strong intention and just watch how the remembrance of being the observer starts to happen. You'll catch yourself in some kind of unconscious reaction. And even as the words are coming out of your mouth, and I'm sure you've experienced this, words are coming out of your mouth and you're like, ew, spit it out. I hate that reaction. Like awareness catches it. Whereas
Yeah.
before it was just a mental tendency. You never saw it. Maybe you were always like dramatizing everything you said. And then you'll be
Yeah.
talking to someone and you'll catch yourself being dramatic and you're like, oh, gross. There I go again. Well, did you do that? Where's the practicer? Like, was that a practice? Did we lose you? You're back.
Yeah. Somebody was trying to call me and then I lose audio. I can't hear
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Sorry about that. That was really good. That was helpful.
So that's how it looks for me in short, is that it just happens because I want it to happen. But in the beginning, part of you wanting it is to put it into practice because the mind has a lot of inertia. I've brought this up before, but in the Indian tradition, they have the three gunas of the mind, tamas, rajas, and sattvas. Tamas means inertia, where it's karma, basically, all of my past thoughts and actions, belief in the person, going. I need this, I want that. And then rajas is some kind of practice or action you take to slow the mind down. So meditation, self-inquiry, contemplation. There's an awareness of the inertia. And then sattva is peace of mind or harmony, stillness of mind. So it takes rajas for a while to get to sattvas. It takes action or practice to get to stillness. But at a certain point, it's sort of like the rajas hands over to the sattvas, and stillness kind of takes care of everything from that point on. There is an awareness of stillness in you now. And because you're aware of stillness in you, it makes the mind's thoughts and words much more obvious. Like if you're in a very quiet room, you can hear somebody whisper. But if you're in a noisy auditorium, like, you'll never hear someone whispering in a noisy room, right? It's like that with the mind. It takes time to quiet it through practice. But at some point, the practice becomes a joy, becomes a liberation for you, and it goes on of its own accord. And from that point of view, you can actually look back and realize, oh yeah, there never was a doer. It was always grace. It was always awareness meeting the mind where it was, at this very noisy state where the mind thought that it was the awareness doing the meditating. Over time, awareness carried the boat by itself, and you realize now there was never a captain of the ship. Nobody was there the whole time.
So it's like getting to a place of just allowing life to happen, to unfold, realizing I'm not the guy that's doing anything. I'm just kind of watching it, everything unfold before me.
Yes, allowing and observing, allowing
Yeah.
and observing.
Okay.
You'll find that that is a state of true, magnificent power. It feels to you as if now the whole universe, I really am now the captain at the helm. But it's because all actions are my actions. I don't feel separate from this thing anymore. I don't feel like I'm at war with it anymore.
It feels like true surrender is what I hear you saying, like really surrendering to the divine, just allowing things to happen, you know?
Exactly.
That's
Surrender
what I feel.
is paradoxically the only form of free will there is, to surrender to the one will. And in surrendering, we have the understanding I am that one will. The only free will that exists is God's free will.
Good. This is good.
That helpful?
Thanks, man. So helpful.
Fantastic. Well, thank you as always for the excellent questions, my friend.